Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon, depending on where you are. My name is Sandeep Hinduja, and I lead the banking business for Newgen in the US. Amongst the many privileges granted to me, one of them is also an honor to be able to speak to some of our valued customers. And today I'm honored to be joined by Pete Peterson, who's the Chief Retail Risk Officer at United Community Bank. Pete has been a champion of lending to small businesses and also been an ardent user of our platform. So today I'm hoping we'll be able to leverage his expertise and bring to you all some of the industry expertise, learnings that we'll be able to put in place and extend to our own practices wherever we operate, either on the technology side or on the business side of it. And the background for today is, let's kick this off with a little, story. And according to a recent Federal Reserve Small Business Credit Survey, they observed that 43% of small employer firms applied for financing in 2024, obviously underscoring the sustained demand for credit. If we look at what the analyst community is saying, we also heard from McKinsey saying that banks can reduce their operating costs by almost 20 to 30% by things like workflow simplification, intelligent automation at scale. Now, while the options available to our users are plenty, ranging all the way from simplification of existing operations flows all the way to AI at the other end, what becomes important is how do we pick and choose what we deploy, when we deploy it. So what I intend to do today is to talk to Pete about his experiences. We'll discuss what were the pain points they were facing as an organization, what really caused the pain to get them to do something about it, what were the changes they made. Did AI come into their decision-making landscape? How are they looking at it now and in the future? And finally, how risk and governance evolved, right? And then most importantly, what in the mind of the business leader, specifically like Pete, is the next 5-year horizon looking like? So without further ado, let me turn this over to Pete. Pete, let me start with, requesting you to summarize your journey at United Community Bank, and how did you balance that conundrum, if you may, between speed and structural stability?
Yeah, thanks, Sandeep, and thanks for having me today. Kind of a little bit of background. This is my 41st year in banking, and started my first small business shop up when I was 26. So I've been at it, for a very long time now. Had the fortune of kind of coming over to United Community Bank about 6 years ago. And we have kind of been working on systems pretty much all those 6 years. I think one of the issues that we had is upper level management knew that small business was should be a growth area for us. But we did not feel we had the infrastructure in place to kind of hit the gas on the application volume. So we went in search of a new system, and we're lucky to kind of partner with Newgen in 2024. And we kind of worked on the design on our new system throughout 2024, and then had a very successful implementation in the first part of 2025. The challenges that we had kind of before, we didn't have really a solid end-to-end system. It was very fragmented. We had a lot of manual steps along the way. We didn't have automation, with our business partners along the way. So we desperately needed a partner to kind of help us put that together. And that's what we did with Newgen, and since then we have put our foot on the gas and have not looked back. So,
Excellent. And I remember some of our initial discussions, Pete, and you used to talk about, hey, we got to grow this business. but at the same time, we've got to grow it, with sustainability. And you used to talk about how technology can be both a boon and at the same time a strain on the operation capacity that you have in place, right? And when growth amplifies your operational strain, the ability to scale comes into question. So what were the choices that you all faced early on, right, as you decided to go down this path of transformation? And how did you go about making those choices between how do you scale the operations floor along with the new technology that you're deploying?
Yeah, it's kind of very key because with the growth, you don't want to have to just throw people at it and hire people to kind of cover the growth. So I think probably one of the most important things was that planning stage where we went through our process. And I think one of the mistakes that most people make is when they get a new system, they make the mistake of falling into the trap of building their existing processes into it, which is probably one of the bigger mistakes you can make. But we spent, a solid year walking through all of our processes and felt really good. We had a really good Newgen staff on board with us as we walked through our process that were very consultative and kind of let us look at our business in a new way. And what we did with that is we kind of added a lot of API connections in to all of our vendors along the way, which helped streamline. We also kind of put in auto decisioning with the Newgen business rules. And then also we were able to automate. We had a document prep vendor that actually is within Newgen that kind of sped up our document process. But then one of the most important things, we worked with Newgen. Before we were kind of manually putting these on our loan system, and we work with Newgen, and now we have like a JSON file that comes over from Newgen, and we do all of our booking and funding in an automated fashion. So the planning stage was really important, and then Newgen's input in that planning was very important. And kind of what that's led to is we put the Newgen system in January of 2025. Very smooth implementation. But this is something you don't often see, is we ramped up production by 40% year over year in 2025 compared to 2024. And like I said, we didn't add staff. And one of the big driving factors with that was the automation and efficiencies we gained from the Newgen system.
And that's a brilliant story, right, Pete? I mean, a 40% growth within the first year on the small business channel, right? I mean, you're looking at if it's pure retail, hey, that's still doable. But as you step up from retail to small business and then go further up to commercial, that kind of growth number is really spectacular. And what also intrigues me is that y'all didn't boil the ocean with all channels at the same time, right? You in fact looked at your operational structures and you focused on a few channels rather than saying, hey, let's go do this online, let's go do this everywhere. Do you mind touching a little bit upon that for our listeners in terms of how you decided what channels at what stage?
Yeah, we're very customer focused bank, and we felt like it was best to improve our structure through our branch network. So we've really kind of put a great deal of focus on that. The sales force, when we first started out for our small business loans, was our retail staff. So they kind of had responsibilities of both retail loans and small business. So it was real important that the process that we worked on with Newgen is the application process needed to be very straightforward and easy for the branch personnel to submit the applications. And during the design, we pulled in branch personnel to give their feedback. And also with Newgen, it makes it very easy for any kind of supporting documentation to be kind of uploaded to Newgen. Examples, tax returns, W-2s, that type information is uploaded into Newgen. And then one of the huge features is, when the loan comes to a final status, all that information is swept out of Newgen in an automated fashion into Director, kind of, which is our final repository for that. So that, that was definitely, a plus. But then too, like in underwriting, with the scores that we use, that was a tremendous help. And then, streamlining the back piece. So.
Excellent. And as you were making these changes, we also kind of were working together, and we were impressed to see how you all were, managing the governance aspect of it. Because when people hear automation, their biggest concern is about governance, right? How does the whole risk spectrum kind of take space within your automation landscape, if you may, and more about, hey, am I going to still maintain the guardrails that I need to maintain from the risk and regulatory aspect? So do you have some thoughts there in terms of how do you manage risk and governance when you're automating at scale?
Yeah, but this was a huge step forward for us in the area of kind of risk and kind of governance and compliance. We've kind of built out business rules within the systems that identify HMDA loans, and then also pops up a tab of all the information that we need to kind of generate on that. We've got a Reg B process in place that when application kind of comes in, there's a time clock that goes to make sure that we decision the loan in a timely manner. We've got all of our declination letters are automated now and go out, and we have documentation of that. And kind of, I guess proof is in the pudding on this. In the fourth quarter, we had a kind of an internal audit that looked at our origination process on the small business side from start to finish. That audit went extremely well, no exceptions. And, it's because of all the automation. We have audit trails built out within the system where you can click on it and see exactly the time frame of an app. And then basically anything, it's all documented. We have our loan authority that's built into the decision matrix within. So if a underwriter doesn't have sufficient loan authority, they're able to route it. And so there were a lot of controls that put into place that were before were manual, and manual steps can be missed, but automation, as long as you design it right on the front end, it works to perfection on the back end. So I think that was a huge step forward for us, was making the move to Newgen and our system that we currently have in play.
And yes, you're right. And we as we go, you've also been leading the teams in terms of guiding them on any additional alerts, etc., that they need to configure. So that's also an ongoing work, isn't it, that you are monitoring what additionally do you need with the changing risk landscape, and your ability to be able to structure these alerts and keep those guardrails on as you move along. It's not just a one-time activity, isn't it?
Yes, that's correct. And like when we implemented Newgen in January, we also then had like a phase 2 release that came in the third quarter of 2025. And that's something that we really enjoy about the Newgen platform, is the ability, to add to the platform. And we've added, various things on the document side. We are currently working with an outside vendor to work back through Newgen on some additional fraud tools. So it's an ever learning process. You try to get it right the first time, but there's always things that are new that come along that you have to address, or things that you may have missed on the front end. But it's good to kind of have a partner to work with to kind of basically build as you go. And we have been very satisfied with that.
Thank you, Pete. And it's been an excellent experience for us as well. So for leaders like yourselves listening in, what do you think made this sustainable? Because when we started working with you, you did tell me, Sandeep, we have to get this right. And there were several streams you were working along. So do you mind sharing a few factors that overall made this work? Was it across, the sponsorship across the organization? Was it something you did unique that our listeners can take away?
We definitely had executive management support. We had kind of been through a bad experience in the past, which kind of, you learn you learn from things that go wrong and you try to kind of improve on them in the future. But I think probably, without support of executive management, but the thing that made this successful was all the planning and design work that went in on the front end of this. And then also all the testing and stuff that we did ahead of implementation. And then we kind of had our war room set up after implementation, and did not have many issues to deal with, but then also worked with Newgen to provide really good training for both of our, because we actually have right at probably over 500 people operating within the system across the 6-state footprint. And the thing that was a little bit of amazing, sometimes you see kind of a phased rollout on this, but we did not want to be in 2 systems. So we went with the big bang rollout across all 6 states. And that went extremely well. And I think it was the training, the planning, and just really good execution by both our teams and the Newgen team on that.
Excellent. And of course, when you started, you talked about how you look at your existing operations capacity or workflows, because whatever you automate the same. So if you already had chaos and you're automating chaos, but what you guys did was you standardized first and then you automated, and the confidence of saying, hey, we've got this right, kind of went well for the big bang, which is not very commonly seen in the market. It has its benefits in terms of reducing your cost of ownership, reducing your cost to go live substantially, right? So we're also, we carry that as a feather in our cap as well, saying, hey, we have been able to support a partner of ours roll this out across multiple states, right? So that was a good thing for us as well. Now, any conversation in today's technology landscape, Pete, would be incomplete without the mention of the word AI, right? And I know you have looked at automation very prudently. You've been realistic about the lower hanging fruit. So do you mind talking to our users about what your view is on AI? What are you doing in the future? Do you think that will become real in your business? Just some thoughts would help.
Yeah, definitely. And one thing I'll mention too, before I kind of dive into that, it's actually something we're going live actually next week, next Friday, we're putting into place through our Newgen app. Is we had a custom score developed for our small business loans. And right now we use kind of a third-party pool data model. And then that custom score is kind of built out and we maintain it on our mainframe. And then we worked with Newgen that when we start a new loan transaction, we actually pull in data from the mainframe into the transaction to make it kind of easier for our branch people, where they don't have to key a lot of information. A lot of information is there that just pulls in, so it cuts down on keystrokes. But also that score is housed on the mainframe, so we'll be pulling that custom score in and then taking the step to work with Newgen to kind of customize all that into our decisioning rules. The AI definitely, something we want to use for the future. We want to explore kind of automating our spreads for financial information and kind of bringing that into the decision framework. Not too far down the road on that, but I think that we definitely have a partner that can kind of help us get there as we move along that path.
Absolutely, Pete. And mostly, business leaders like yourselves are also wanting to leverage AI in steps. Increase in internal operating efficiency is primarily what the focus seems to be right now. But when you talked about the custom score, now you have an additional dimension on which to base your decision making. So the AI engines, from our vantage point as a vendor, seem to be in that driving inclusion, right? How can you do more of yeses? And we're not focused on how can you increase the more no's, right? We have enough manual capacity there to do that. So we're also working on some of our engines there, and we love to see how this partnership grows on that AI dimension. And now, that brings me to the point of, Pete, you guys have done a lot. You kind of transformed this business. You're seeing fantastic growth. You're doing it sustainably. You're managing risk as you're going. You're also being inspired by the newer technology landscape, and you're looking at what further it can do for your business responsibly. So what does the next 5 years look for you at United Community, specifically in your business and the bank as a whole?
Yeah, that's a very good question. One thing that's been really good to see is, we didn't have the framework in place. We put the framework in place. We had the year that we had last year. So we gained the confidence of executive management. So we're actually now building out small business sales force. Before it was kind of the branch managers and retail bankers that kind of generated the small business loans. But I think now that executive management sees that we have a solid process in place, that they feel this is only the beginning. And we've actually hired, I think now we've got business bankers in 4 states. And so we'll continue to kind of build that out. And we'll continue to kind of partner with Newgen to work on those yeses. Also faster yeses. The faster you can give a yes, the better. And also too, one of the areas I oversee, in addition to originations, is we look at collections. I may also manage collections, bankruptcies, foreclosures in that area. We're kind of looking at Newgen and kind of seeing what kind of functionality or automation we could get from exploring those avenues too. And then also too, we've been in, I've been here 6 years, and I think since I've been here, we've had like 5 bank acquisitions, and it's always good to have a good system for people to come into. And then too, as you recruit people, you want to try to recruit, the best of the best. And when you're the best of the best, you want to come into a bank that has a good solid system for you to originate loans through. And I think now we've got the confidence, if we're hiring business bankers, that we can kind of show them this platform and how they're going to generate their loans. And that adds a comfort level when they look to coming on board with us. So I think the future's pretty bright. I'm 63, so I got about 4 or 5 more years. So that's my horizon. But, I think it's pretty bright, and I think we've got a good partner to kind of venture into the future with.
Excellent, Pete. And that's really the takeaway here, right? That not only how can you say yes faster to use your words there, while also taking your people and your operating models along on that journey, right? How do you get the right talent? How do you train the right talent? How do you scale technology as you're going? But yes, the overall goal is how do you say yes faster and responsibly, right?
Yes.
Okay. And I think also from the audience point of view, many banks are starting on this journey. Some of them are starting with the operating nuances as the greater point. Some of them are starting with outdated technology as a starting point. But whether it's outdated technology or operating nuances, eventually it comes down to the ops floor, right? Technology is simply an enabler. You are trying to improve your experience for your borrowers. You're trying to cut your costs of origination, and you're trying to manage risk. And on all of these buckets, you're essentially looking at technology as an enabler. Would that be a fair statement, Pete?
Oh, yeah, I think, one of the key things for us is, just all the partnerships and the API connections that we've got our title and flood kind of automated now. We've got our actual appraiser vendor that operates within Newgen and works a queue. We've got the interface with our loan documents. We've got the funding and the booking. And then too, I guess too, to add to that, it's not how fast you can provide the yes, but you got to add in, how cost efficient can you provide that fast yes. And the better technology, the less you have to throw people at it. And I think I mentioned this, with that growth last year, we didn't add anybody. And I think we still have additional capacity, to expand on that growth without adding any additional FTEs into that count too.
You guys have done brilliantly well, Pete, and we're proud to be your partner. And I'd love to keep this going all day, but being respectful of your time, Pete, I love the conversation. And to all you listeners out there, I hope you enjoyed the conversation as well. Pete, thank you so much for taking time out and being a part of this conversation. We look forward to continue working with you.
Thanks for having me today.